The Book of Destiny. Translation of Kitab-ul-Taqdeer. Author: Ghulam Ahmed Parwez. Translated by Dr. Ejaz Rasool. Glasgow, UK. ISBN number 9798884207042. 17 Chapter 17, Dua. Supplication. We are now entering that valley of our investigative journey where, as they say, even the wings of angels get burnt. This aspect of our topic is related to the most delicate corner of the human heart. The relationship of supplication is purely with human emotions. And the instruction and emphasis of the Quran is that you should employ intellect and reasoning regarding all problems of life and reflect on them according to knowledge and vision. This is that tussle between intellect and emotions in view of which we have stated that now we are descending into that valley where even the wings of angels get burnt. 17.1 Universality of the motivation for supplication. When the first human beings appear before us on the stage of history, we find them supplicating to some supernatural, unseen power, or powers. And this scene appears before us continuously and successively in human history in every era, every period, every country, and every nation. There may be thousands of differences in the life of nations, thousands of variations in their styles of living and modes of economic transactions. Their civilizations and culture may be different from each other, they may speak different languages, their races may also be different. In summary, they may have nothing in common. Despite this, one thing will most certainly be found among them as a common theme, and that will be to supplicate to some supernatural power. Their beliefs about this power will be disparate, the customs and manners of supplicating to it will be different, their demands and requirements will also be at variance, but the motivating desire behind all these tangible forms will be just one, that is, to entreat some unseen power for one's aid, to implore it for something. This is what is known as dua. So much so, that even that which is called worship is in reality also dua or the preface to a dua. The conclusion of every program of worship is with a dua. Whatever offerings and donations are made before this unseen power or are pledged to it, are also linked conditionally to the acceptance of the dua. Words such as "if a certain desire of mine becomes fulfilled, then this is what I will do" are heard in every era. Dua is the support for every helpless being, the refuge for every destitute being, the last hope for those who are despairing, the means of strength for the weak and feeble, a voice of life for the voiceless, a ray of hope for every dejected being, the means of relief for every distressed heart, an ointment for the healing of every aching heart, a hand of reassurance for every weeping eye, and a final abode of shelter for each one of those who is dispossessed and repulsed at every turn. When the world of intellect and reasoning terminates, then the world of dua is initiated, and the most sincere and heartfelt supplication is that in which there is not the slightest contamination of intellect and reasoning. The higher the extent of absorption in a dua, the greater will be the expectation of its acceptance, and absorption means that man becomes so engrossed in it that he becomes oblivious to the world and its environment. Just think that if this is the state of a sentiment, then reflecting on it using intellect and reasoning and trying to comprehend it, and make it comprehensible based on knowledge and vision, if this is not called insanity, then what else will it be? But the constraint of a Quranic student is that he cannot abandon the sphere of intellect and vision even in these delicate matters. That Quran which also emphasizes reflection and reasoning in the reality of a metaphysical matter like the hereafter. 2. 219 to 220. How can it give permission for any issue, based on its sensitivity, to be handed over to a whirlpool of emotions? It teaches us to comprehend that too by using knowledge and vision, and directs us to understand it using intellect and consciousness, especially because this dua has a profound connection with the issue of taqdeer, and a greatly fundamental relationship to the practical world. We will examine this topic from this angle and will request our readers that they also try and understand it in this way, and do not allow their emotions, which may possibly suffer a knock at some places, to become a barrier in this. The journey is a difficult and thorny one, so difficult and thorny that even a visionary like Iqbal was compelled to say here that Iqbal easily passed through the stage of intellect, but that intellectual became caught in the stage of love. But we are hopeful that if in this goal we do not let go of the companionship of the eternal guidance from such as the Quran from our hands, we will reach the fountainhead of life very easily, because its declaration is, those who strive in our cause, we will certainly guide them to our paths. 29. 69. 17.2 The common meaning of supplication. The usual meaning of dua among us is taken to be that of requesting something from Allah. In this the concept of requesting is so dominant and profound that we commonly use the term requesting a dua. Whereas if we take the meaning of dua itself as being that of requesting, then the combination of requesting a dua becomes meaningless and illogical. In the Arabic language the meaning of dua is not that of requesting but is that of calling out to someone, drawing the attention of someone, and uttering something out loud. But since someone is usually called out to for assistance, hence its meanings are taken to be that of seeking help. The style of the Quran is that it uses the same word for those people who are not followers of the pure deen brought by the Anbiya but are followers of the tampered form called religion. And also in relation to those who are the followers of pure deen. The Quran, when it uses a word in reference to the former, then it takes on the same meaning which is prevalent among them. When it uses this same word in reference to the latter, then from this it denotes the correct Quranic meaning. For example, it uses the word ilah for both, but its concept among the religionists is different from that specified by deen, or when it uses the word ibadat, then among the religionists its meaning is that of worship and rites, but according to deen its meaning is that of obedience to the commands and laws of Allah. In deen there is no concept of worship, instead there is the concept of obedience and rule, and ilah denotes that supreme and omnipotent being whose commands and laws are to be followed. Similarly, it uses the words da'a, yadu, etc. for religionists, and from this is meant that belief according to which they beseech their goddesses and gods for aid. But when this same word is used in relation to Allah, then from this is not just meant calling out to but also that of obeying Allah. In order to understand the Quranic meaning of dua, it is essential to bear this fundamental difference in mind. First, we will discuss those places in the Quran in which this word is used to mean obedience. 17.3 Dua means to obey. It is stated in Surah Al-Mu'min, He, Allah, is alive and life-giving, there is no sovereign except Him. Hence call upon Him by specifying pure and exclusive obedience and authority to Him. 40. 65. We will translate this as calling upon Him, so that it is made clear that according to the Quran, the meaning of calling out to Allah is that of obeying Him. After this it is stated, O Rasool, say to them that I have been forbidden from adopting a budiyat, the rule of and obedience to those whom you call upon by forsaking Allah. 40. 66. Note that here the words dua, calling upon, and ibadat, obedience, are used with synonymous meanings. And at the end it is stated that I have been commanded that I only bow my head before the laws of Rabbi al-Alamin. 40. 65-66. The word uslima has made the meanings of the words dua and ibadat completely clear, that is to bow before the divine laws. In Surah Maryam, in reference to the illustrious account of Ibrahim, it is stated that he said to his people that I sever my relationship with you and also with those whom you call upon by forsaking Allah. I call upon my Rabb. 19. 48. And after this it is stated, consequently, when he severed his relationship with them, and with those whom they used to worship. 19. 48-49. Note here also that the words taduna and yabulatinduna are used with synonymous meanings. In Surah Al-Mu'min it is stated that your Rabb instructs you to call upon me, I will answer your call. The Quranic meaning of answer your call will be covered further on. After this it is stated that those people who adopt rebellion against my ibadat, obedience to me, my rule, they will enter Jahannam, humiliated and disgraced. 40. 60. Note here, too, the words dua and ibadat appear with synonymous meanings. It is stated in Surah At-Tur that the inhabitants of paradise will be asked by those who question, that what did you do to which you became deserving of paradise? In reply they will say that before this, in the worldly life, we used to call upon Allah. 52. 28. It is obvious that from this it can only mean obedience to the divine commands, because no one can become deserving of paradise, and its inheritor, by merely calling out to Allah. At one place it is stated to Rasool to say to them, that I only call upon my Rabb and do not associate anyone with him. 72. 20. Here, too, calling upon means to adopt obedience to Allah and to not associate anyone else in this. The meaning of shirk is, in reality, obedience to a non-Allah authority. This was the general invitation of the Anbiya, to not call upon anyone else other than Allah. 26. 213, 28. 88, 72. 18. It is stated in clear words in Surah Al-An'am that, O Rasool, say to these people that when I have received this kind of enlightened guidance from Allah, then after this how can I possibly call upon a non-Allah entity? And I have been commanded that I should bow down before Rabbi al-Alamin alone and not obey anyone else's commands. 6. 71. The words divine guidance and bowing your head in front of this clearly demonstrate that the meaning of calling upon Allah is that of obedience to His commands and laws. 17.4 The prevalent concept of dua. After this we come to those verses in which the meaning of calling upon Allah is taken. Generally held belief to be that of making a dua. But before analyzing these places, we consider it essential to examine those doubts and objections which arise from this meaning of dua. 17.4.1 Do which arise from this if the belief is that Allah has already pre-written whatever is to occur in human life, and that this is immutable, documented as Qismat, then dua no longer retains any utility. For example, it is already decided about an individual that he will remain sick for a certain number of days and then will die. So then whether he himself or his relations now perform 1,000 duas, there can be no alteration in what is written as his fate. Qismat. He will remain sick for a certain number of days and then will die. But if it is said that, no, Taqdeer does change through dua, then this belief that whatever is written as Qismat is immutable will be declared as being false. That decision which can be altered, whether through dua or through planning, cannot be declared as being immutable. And together with this, according to this belief, a strange sort of concept appears before us about Allah Himself. That first He formed a decision about a matter and declared that this decision of ours is absolute, then after that He began to wait, so that if this individual, or his relations, appeals to us, then we will alter our decision, and if he remains silent then this decision will become implemented. Just think what kinds of impressions are generated from this kind of concept about Allah. If it is said that every matter is not decided in advance, rather Allah carries out the decision on every matter concurrently, then even further complexities arise from this. For example, there is a mutual court case between Zayd and Bakr on which the court has to give a verdict. Zayd is in the right, unhacked, and Bakr is a liar. Both beseech to Allah that the decision is made in his favor. It is obvious that the dua of both of them cannot be accepted, as inevitably the decision of the court can only be in the favor of one of them. The question is that whose dua will be accepted from between these two. If we say that the dua of the one who supplicates with greater humility will be accepted, then it is possible that Bakr will supplicate with even greater submissiveness and meekness, so then the meaning of this will be that Allah will accept the dua of the one who is not in the right, not unhacked. And the court case will be decided against the one who is in the right. And if it is said that Allah will accept the dua of the one who is in the right, that is that of Zayd, then the question which arises from this is that if Zayd had not made a dua, then what would have happened? Would Allah then have favored Bakr because he supplicated, while Zayd did not make a dua? And if it is said that Allah will, in any event, aid the one who is a follower of Haqq, then firstly, this is contrary to what takes place in practice. Among us there are verdicts delivered on a daily basis which are against Haqq, so much so that many innocents are even hanged on the gallows. But even if it is accepted that Allah is on the side of the one who is in the right, then in that situation dua becomes meaningless. Whether the one in the right makes a dua or not, Allah will nevertheless be with him. And the one who is not in the right, even if he makes 1,000 duas, Allah will not hear him. If it is said that a mere dua is not enough, rather planning is also necessary together with it, through a dua plans become successful, then that same difficulty confronts us as a result of this. Zayd and Bakr both do their planning. But Bakr also does a dua along with this. And Zayd does not do a dua, so will the planning of Bakr then succeed in this situation because he also made a dua, and Zayd will remain unsuccessful because he did not make a dua, even though he was in the right. These are those thoughts which arise in our minds because of the prevalent beliefs in relation to dua among us. In this very connection that verse of Surah Al-Baqarah appears before us which is presented at a fundamental level regarding dua and its acceptance, but whose incorrect interpretation adds further to these difficulties. That verse is this, and it is commonly translated as follows: O Rasool, when my servants will ask you about me, say to them that I am near them. When someone wishing to call to me, calls upon me, then I listen to his call and accept it. 2. 186. The difficulty which arises from this translation is that every day we witness that the deprived and oppressed, the poor and the weak, the destitute and helpless, people stricken by calamities, supplicate to Allah with great devotion and fervour, but none of their troubles are rectified. Their whole life is spent suffering under the burden of tyranny and oppression. Therefore, in view of this practical evidence, how can it be accepted that Allah hears the dua of every caller who calls upon Him, and fulfills his supplication? In response to this objection, what is commonly said is that though Allah hears each and every one, He only does that which is good. Haqq. For the one who is making the dua. Therefore, if someone's dua is not fulfilled, then he should assume that whatever has happened is what was best for him. But this answer, leaving aside the fact that because of this the oppressed, grief-stricken, unjustly treated human being cannot have any real satisfaction from this, becomes the cause for very far-reaching, destructive consequences. An oppressed human being supplicates to Allah against the excesses of a tyrant. And then after this he observes that his condition has not improved even the slightest, instead the injustices of this brutal tyrant keep on increasing. Then, according to the response noted above, he should understand that the injustice of the tyrant is good, Haqq, for him, and is entirely according to the will of Allah. Therefore, he should now neither open his mouth against his tyrannies, nor should he think of taking any steps to try and protect himself against this. Just reflect how these kinds of beliefs become the cause for leaving tyrants unrestrained. Before this, at least, feelings of revenge would have arisen in the hearts of the victims against these tyrants. And it would have been possible that they may have thought to take some steps to protect themselves against their excesses. But after this belief, the situation will be such that not only will the oppressed tolerate this excess and injustice with total peace in his heart, but will also pray in favor of the tyrant that he is creating better conditions for him. What a bizarre state of affairs! You have witnessed what kinds of beliefs tyrannical powers keep concocting for the subjugated and oppressed, so that they can slaughter them, and yet they should remain grateful to them. 17.4.2 Allah hears the dua of His servants. Moving forward from here, this belief appears before us that Allah does not listen to everyone. He accepts the supplications of His favorite servants. The consequence of this belief is that on the revered doorstep of every Hazrat Sahib can be seen a crowd of people suffering from hardships and stricken by calamity, fervently appealing with hands clasped and many even kissing their feet, begging that, "O Hazrat, do a dua for me, otherwise I will be ruined and doomed." And this process does not remain confined to the life of the Hazrat Sahib, but after their demise, which is not called death, but is termed wasal, that is, their joining with their beloved, that is, God, becomes associated with their Mazar-e Sharif, mausoleum, where requests and the fulfillment of wishes are implored from them by falling into prostrations. When they are questioned, in response they say that we are sinful people, hence we cannot have access to Allah. These holy people have access to the court of Allah, hence Allah accepts their requests. This belief is held, and together with it that verse of the Quran is also recited which we have noted above, that, "When my servants inquire about me, say to them that I am near to them. I respond to the call of everyone who calls." 2. 186. 17.5 Belief that a sultan is the shadow of Allah on earth. It is obvious that this belief about a plea reaching Allah via those who are near to Him is an invention of our era of Malikiyat. In that era it was embedded in the minds that Al-Sultan Zil-Lillah Allah al-Ard, the king is the shadow of Allah on earth. Therefore, whatever kind of shadow was witnessed on earth, the same kind of original embodiment about Him was imagined to be in the heavens. According to this shadow, the picture of Allah which appears before us is obvious. Just like the kings here, He too is thought of as an autocratic ruler, King of kings. Neither constrained by any procedure, nor any law, whoever He wishes is captured, whoever He wishes is bestowed with rewards. Whoever He wishes is forgiven, whoever He wishes is chained. In the same connection, the king's court appeared before them, in which first of all guards and gatekeepers were to be found standing. Then among the entourage of the court, the elite, officials, ministers, and close royal attendants would appear. For a common man it was simply not possible that he could make his application reach the Grand Sultan directly. For this he needed the medium of the royal attendants. This is the same blueprint which we have drawn of the court of Allah. According to this, in order to make our supplication reach Allah, the requirement for those who were close to Him was declared to be necessary. This is that requirement in view of which there is a search for the medium of some Hazrat Sahib to make a dua reach Allah. They make our request reach Allah and also offer intercession. Together with this, Allah accepts their plea and our request. Dua becomes accepted. Together with the request, some kind of donation also has to be made, exactly as gifts are presented before kings, or their courtiers have to be serviced. This is that concept of Allah which royalty imprinted on our minds, and which gradually acquired the form of holy beliefs. With the passage of time, these beliefs became embedded in our hearts in such a way that if now something is said against them, then fatwas of kufr and al-had from the custodians of Shariat are imposed on him. And the devotees of Tariqat too begin to quake at the thought of who knows what wrath will descend from the direction of Hazrat Sahib. Despite the fact that the proclamation of Allah about these people is that they are human beings, servants of Allah, just like you. 7. 194. And it is stated about those shrines to which they go and make supplications for the fulfillment of wishes, or which are declared to be the medium for conveying supplications to Allah, that you can call upon them 1,000 times, they simply cannot hear you. And even if, supposing, they hear you, then they cannot even answer back. 35. 14. Whatever you call out repeatedly to them, they are totally unaware of it. 46. 5. They do not even have any knowledge about themselves regarding when they are going to be resurrected. 16. 21. Those who are ignorant even about their own condition, how are they going to listen to you, and what help can they extend? 17.6 Whose supplications are accepted? Now let us deal with this question of whose supplications are accepted, and how these are accepted. First of all, ponder on this verse, one part of which we have twice quoted above, that is, when my servants ask you about me, then say to them that I am near to them. I respond to the call of everyone who calls upon me. After this it is stated that, say to them that if you desire that your wish is granted, then the procedure for this is that you should maintain full conviction in the truth of my guidance, laws, and obey me. Respond to my commands. In this way, the correct path of success will appear before you. 2. 186. It is stated in Surah Al-Shura. It is those who accept Iman and do salih deeds whose supplications are granted. 42. 26. In other words, the essential and natural outcome of Iman and salih deeds is success, and this is the very purpose of dua. It is stated in Surah Al-Mu'min that call upon me, I will respond to your call, but listen carefully to this. Those people who adopt rebellion against obedience to me, their supplications will not be accepted. They will enter hell, humiliated and disgraced. 40. 60. In Surah Al-Araf, together with calling to Allah it is stated, He does not approve of those who exceed limits. 7. 55. Remember, those people who reject the truth of the laws of Allah, their supplications go to waste. 40. 50. For the acceptance of supplications the foremost condition is Iman. And know also regarding Iman that only those people will be considered to have truly accepted Iman whose condition is such that when the laws of Allah are presented before them, they bow their heads in acceptance, and then make full endeavors to make the attribute of Rububiyyat of Allah a cause for hamd and appreciation, and they do not resort to transgression in obedience to Allah under any circumstances. In this striving, those people even make their sleep during the night haram on themselves. In this way, they call upon Allah in both the states of hope and fear, and whatever Allah has bestowed upon them, they keep it available for the Rububiyyat of all. 32. 15-16. In Surah Al-Imran this reality is described in a very attractive style. We present the meaning of the related verses from Mafhum al-Quran. It is stated, for those people who make use of intellect and insight, there are great signs in the creation of the universe, and the alternation of night and day, of the strength and comprehensiveness of the laws of Allah. These men of intellect and vision, and possessors of perspicacity and insight, who in every aspect of life, whether standing, sitting, and lying down, keep the laws of Allah before their eyes, and keep reflecting and pondering on the creative program of the universe, and after conducting their research, declare based on their observation and evidence that, O our Rabb, you have not created the system of the universe without any purpose or devoid of meaning, nor to establish destructive outcomes. Your being is far beyond this, that you would create something without aim, and without purpose and need. Bestow on us this ability that, after research based on knowledge and practical experimentation, we draw correct benefits from the things of the universe, and in this way, we remain protected from destructive outcomes. Those nations which remain deprived of the benefits of the things of the universe through not engaging in this kind of research, the fields of their efforts and deeds wither, and they live a life of humiliation and ignominy, and it is obvious that there is no friend and helper of such humiliated and disgraced nations. But it is also essential that by harnessing the forces of nature, these are not employed for the destruction of the world, instead these are brought into use for the universal Rububiyyat of mankind. Only that nation can do this which maintains a firm conviction in the guidance of Allah. Hence, the call of these men of intellect and vision is also that, O Rab. We heard from one who calls, that, come. Have iman in the truth of the law of your Rab. We have said yes to his invitation, and have accepted iman in Allah. After this, such yearnings arise in the hearts of these men of knowledge and iman that they make supplications. O our Rab. If we commit some error or omission, then keep us protected from its harmful effects. And keep erasing the effects of our minor errors of judgment and planning mistakes. And make our end in the company of those people before whom the paths of the vastness and greatness of life have become opened. O our Rab. Bestow on us the bounties and successes which you have promised us through your messengers, via Wahi. And do not let us be humiliated and disgraced in the eyes of the world at the time of the manifestation of the results of deeds. We have conviction that you do not go against your promise. 3. 190 to 194. You have seen both the attributes of those who supplicate and also their supplications. Now listen to the response from the direction of Allah. It is proclaimed. Allah answered their supplications, saying, we have heard your pleas, but keep in mind, we do not let the work of anyone who strives go to waste. Whether a man or a woman, everyone gets the full recompense for their deed. 3. 195. This is the response from the direction of Allah to supplications, and the condition for their acceptance. 17.7 Acceptance of supplications of the Anbiya. This was the situation for ordinary mu'mineen. Now let us also examine the circumstances for the acceptance of supplications of the Anbiya so that the matter becomes even clearer. It is stated about the Messenger Nuh that when his nation fiercely opposed him, then he called upon us, and we are the best to respond to supplications. 37. 75. What answer was given in response to his dua? Listen attentively to it. We sent Wahi towards him, that you need to build an ark under our supervision, according to our instructions. 23. 27. In other words, in response to the supplication of Nuh, it was not stated that you should remain sitting comfortably, we will make arrangements for your protection. He was informed of that technique through which he and his Jamaat could remain secure from the impending flood. When Moses was instructed to go to Pharaoh and have Bani Israel released from his tyrannical grip, then sensing the challenging nature of this campaign and the dangers associated with it, he supplicated to Allah for many supporting means and resources, so that these become a source of strength for him. In reply to this, it was stated that, O Moses, whatever you have requested, we have bestowed it upon you. 20. 36. It is obvious that when Allah has declared this to be the case, that your dua has been accepted and your wish has been fulfilled, then there could not have been any need to do anything further. But along with this, he was also told, both of you, Moses and his brother Harun, go to Pharaoh, and remember, do not slacken even the slightest in bringing to fruition the program which is given to you. 20. 42. At another place it is stated, Allah stated that I have accepted your dua, now you remain steadfast on this program. And remember, you should never obey these people who do not possess knowledge of the reality. 10. 89. In the same way, Moses supplicated that the bounties of the world and the hereafter are bestowed on his ummah. In response it was stated that this will take place, provided that these people obey the final messenger. There is no doubt in this that my rahmat encompasses the whole universe, but it only becomes available to those among mankind who have conviction in the truth of our laws. Observe these fully, and provide the means of sustenance to others. 7. 156 to 157. Zachariah made a dua for a son, and he was given the glad tidings for this at the same time. But this dua was fulfilled in this way, that the defect in his wife, due to which they did not have children, became rectified. 21. 90. 17.8 Thirsty on the banks of a river. From these explanations you will have noticed that regarding the supplications about which it is stated that these have been accepted by us, it is also emphasized that the physical resources and means required for their success should be provided. And to act with determination and steadfastness on your program, not this, to make a supplication and to then sit back doing nothing. With respect to these kinds of supplications, it is stated in Surah Arra to just imagine a thirsty person who is standing on the edge of a river beseeching with both his hands outstretched. Will the thirst of such a man become quenched? Never. The thirst of that person will be quenched who, stepping forward, cups his hands, fills them with water and drinks it. Remaining standing with hands outstretched towards the water will never alleviate thirst until doomsday. Those people who deny the truth of the laws of Allah, their supplications go to waste like this. 13. 14. 17.9 How are the supplications of the oppressed heard? At this point it will be said that whatever has been described is correct in its own way. But the question is whether in the dominion of Allah, is there no one to hear those who are suffering from oppression and destitution? Is there no solution to their sorrows? Is there no remedy for their hardships? Is there no one at all to hear their supplications? The Quran gives a response to these questions in the affirmative. It states that their supplications are both heard and accepted, but the technique for this is different. What is that technique? Listen to it intently. After striving year after year, and following persistent toil and efforts, the Jamaat-e-Momineen got their own state established in Medina. But the issue of the oppression of those Muslims who were trapped in Mecca at that time became even more intensified from the direction of the Quraysh. In this condition of extreme helplessness and oppression, they prayed to Allah to help them, and to create some way of becoming free from the cruelty and tyranny of these oppressors. They supplicated to Allah, and do you know what Allah did? Allah addressed the Jamaat-e-Momineen of Medina, and told them that, O Jamaat-e-Momineen, what has happened to you that you do not rise to fight in the path of Allah? Do you not hear how the people of Mecca, who are oppressed and persecuted, helpless and vulnerable, weak and feeble, men, women, and children, are imploring us profusely that, O our Rabb, take us out from this habitation, whose inhabitants are so bent upon injustice and oppression. O flag bearers of the Islamic State, do you not hear their supplications? And if you are listening, then what are you waiting for? Why do you not rise up to help them? Do you not hear with what anguish they are imploring us? They are asking us to create some companion and helper for them, some supporter and benefactor. 4. 75. Just reflect that the oppressed in Mecca are supplicating to Allah. What difficulty was there for Allah to help them directly and to free them from the enemy? But He did not do this. Instead He asked that state, that government, that system which was established in His name to implement His laws, that you need to respond to their call, you need to rise up to help them. 17.10 The pleas of the persecuted are heard by the Islamic State. This is the correct procedure for the acceptance of the supplications of the persecuted. This same Jamaat-e-Momineen, which was now in Medina, remained a testing ground for endless tyranny by the Quraysh of Mecca for 13 years. During that period they would certainly not have made any fewer supplications to Allah. But since at that time there was no such system in the world which had come into existence to rescue the oppressed, there was no means available to aid them. They were continuously told to remain resolute on their program with courage and steadfastness. One day your government will become established, then the solution to these difficulties will be automatically found. And in this way not only will your own hardships be resolved, but you will also become enabled to help those persecuted human beings who will make supplications for help and support from us. Allah. Just see with what eloquence the Quran has described this reality at another place. It is stated, say, who is it that hears the supplications of those with distressed hearts and removes their troubles and worries? What does He do for this? He grants you with estate and power. 27. 62. This is that procedure of Allah through which the troubles of the persecuted become rectified. It should be borne in mind that this power is also not bestowed by merely supplicating. This is the consequence of their iman and salih deeds. 24. 55. At another place it is stated about this same Jamaat Imamanin. These are the people who respond and move forward on the call of their Rabb, who fully obey his commands and laws. They settle their affairs of state in the light of these through mutual consultation. And whatever means of sustenance Allah has provided to them, they keep it available for the general welfare of others. 42. 38. Have you noticed that here, too, the reference is to that system of government through mutual consultation, which is shaped to remove injustice and oppression from the world. This was that method through which Bani Israel were freed from the injustices of the people of Pharaoh. It is stated in Surah Al-Qasas. Pharaoh had resorted to great injustices in his country. In order to maintain the strength of his power, he used to keep dividing the people of his nation into different parties, and in this way he would keep making one party, Bani Israel, ever weaker, so that they would not be capable of rising up. What he used to do for this was that by humiliating and condemning those individuals of this nation who displayed signs of courage and mettle, he would render them ineffective. And those who did not possess these qualities, he would bring them forward and promote them. In this way, he kept creating imbalances among them. In view of this transgression and these injustices of his, the decision of our law of requital was that the nation which was being weakened so greatly in this manner should be bestowed with our bounties, that is, they should be bestowed with leadership and success in the land, and they should be made possessors of such a piece of land where they have their own government. 28. 4-6. 17.10.1 When does the need to make a supplication arise? Have you ever reflected when and where those who are persecuted and destitute need to resort to making a supplication to Allah? Its need arises in that wrong society where there is nothing which follows any procedure and law, there is injustice everywhere. Rights are not accorded to the one who is entitled to them. Where there is none to help the oppressed and stop the hand of a tyrant. Where there is none to help the individual who is left isolated in society. Where lawlessness is such that living life is made unbearable for righteous people. Where the state of chaos and self-centeredness is such that if someone happens to fall down, all trample over him and walk on, no one cares to help him up. Where no one is concerned about whose children are hungry and who has no clothes with which to cover himself. In a society where an impoverished invalid dies an uninvited death just because he does not have money to pay for the treatment. And a widowed mother is distraught at the thought of how will she avail herself of money for a coffin and burial of her dead adult son. And now what will happen to me? This is that society in which the poor and destitute have to resort to supplications to Allah at every step, because they have no hope of support other than this. As we have already written, this is that very society, being moved by which, someone has said that the one who is not acquainted with hardship, the one who has not been ensnared by pain and grief, the one who has never faced suffering, the one who has never awoken weeping in the night, he does not know what a dua is. What does he know of what Allah is? 17.10.2 This does not happen in a balanced society. When a society is shaped on the correct lines, the permanent values of Allah, then every matter in it is decided according to procedure and law. Everyone receives the rights they are entitled to, and that too without any anxiety or obstruction. There is no injustice to anyone, nor any deceitfulness. The needs of life in it for every individual continue to be fulfilled from the direction of the state, hence there is no one in it who is either dependent or unheard. No one in it finds himself isolated or without support. In such a society no one feels any need whatsoever to ask Allah for those things for which we feel needy and helpless at every step and beseech Allah. 17.10.3 A very comprehensive declaration by Caliph Umar Farooq. This supreme reality has been described by Umar Farooq in such a comprehensive and profound manner that whenever we ponder on it, our soul becomes ecstatic. You have already seen one of his sayings, that is, when he decided to migrate from the plague-affected area to that area which was not affected by plague, it was said to him that, "Are you trying to escape from the Taqdeer of Allah?" In reply to this he had said, "Yes. I am going from one Taqdeer of Allah to another Taqdeer of His." Now note another saying by him, and reflect with what great astuteness this companion of Rasulullah had comprehended the spirit of Deen. And what an eloquent style the divine guidance had blessed them with to express such profound realities in words which could be commonly understood. He said, "O people, listen and remember that I have been given the responsibility of Caliphate so that I can stop your supplications from reaching Allah. Allahu Akbar." What a supreme reality which has been expressed in such simple words. The meaning is clear, that the aim of the establishment of Caliphate is that the need of any needy one does not remain unfulfilled. When this will be the situation, then no individual will feel any requirement to supplicate to Allah for his needs. And if any individual is found to be supplicating to Allah for his need, then this will mean that I have been unable to fulfill my duty, and it is as if that individual is complaining to Allah against me. That is why I will have to immediately hold myself to account, and endeavor that no complaint against me reaches the court of Allah, that the need of the one who is needy becomes fulfilled before that. 17.11 The supplications of Mu'mineen are collective. This is the condition of that society which becomes shaped under the guidance of Wahy. In this no one ever has to supplicate to Allah for their individual needs. The one who receives everything automatically, what need will he have to beg for it? This is the reason that whatever supplications of the Mu'mineen are mentioned in the Quran, they are all collective, not individual. For what purpose these collective supplications are made can be gauged from the supplications themselves. Note some of these entreaties of the Mu'mineen here. 1. O Rabbi al-Alamin, show us the straight and balanced path of life, the path of those people on whom your blessings were showered. 1. 5-7. 2. O our Rabb, bestow on us Hasanate 219 of this world and also Hasanate of the hereafter. 2. 201. 3. The supplications of the Mujahideen. O our Rabb, bestow on us steadfastness and resoluteness so that there is no wavering in our steps. If we do err and commit some lapse, then provide us with protection from the harm due to it, and grant success to us against our opponents. 2. 250, 3. 147-148. 4. O our Rabb, overlook our lapses and errors, that we do not become buried under the burden of ignorance and darkness under which previous nations were buried. Bestow so much power on us that we can fulfill our responsibilities as a result. Bestow on us supremacy and victory over those people who are opponents of your system. 2. 286, 3. 16. 5. O our Rabb, may this not happen that after finding the right path, our footsteps again step in the wrong direction. Keep providing us with the means of nourishment. 3. 8. 6. O our Rabb, fulfill the promises which you have made to us through your messengers. 3. 193-194. 7. May we be counted among the category of Salihin. 5. 84. Not among the category of Zalimin. 7. 47. 8. Decide between us and our opponents with haqq. 7. 89. This was the supplication of the messenger Shuaib and his followers. The Anbiya and their Jamaat used to make these kinds of supplications in their confrontations with their opponents. 9. The supplication of the followers of Moses was, O Rabb, do not make us a testing board for the Zalimin. 10. 85. This was the same dua of the companions of the messenger Ibrahim. 60. 5. 10. Supplications to remain protected from the punishment of hell. 25. 65. 11. That our wives and children become the cause for the contentment of our hearts. That family life be one of peace and tranquility. And that we may be declared as the flag bearers of the Muttaqeen. 25. 74. 12. O our Rabb, provide us with protection and also to those of our brothers who have already left this life with Iman. O our Rabb, do this, that no ill feelings should remain in our hearts about our brothers. 59. 10. 13. The supplications of the Mu'mineen in Jannat, that our light may be completed. 66. 8. This is the pattern of the supplications of the Mu'mineen. All their supplications are collective, through which sentiments for the good of the whole society, Jamaat, and system, abound and become apparent. The question which arises here is that these prayers may be collective, but what transpires from them? What is their outcome? This is an important question, and merits deep reflection and understanding because this is that focal point around which the whole issue of dua revolves. 17.12 What happens through dua? If any task is to be carried out, initially a desire emerges in our heart for this. In the world the basis of a deed is desire. The intensity of this desire will result in a corresponding strength in resolve, and the degree to which our resolve is strong, we will strive to the same extent for the attainment of this goal. Iqbal has written a poem for children, which we hear daily on the lips of every primary school pupil. That is that poem whose first couplet is that. My desire appears on my lips as a dua, O Allah. May my life be like a beacon of light. Although whatever is recited in the first line of this verse is for children, the reality which is described in it is very profound, that is, when the heartfelt desire of man appears on his lips in words, then it is called a dua. The deeper the desire, the more sincere is the dua. The more intense the desire, the more ardent the call. 17.12.1 A psychological change occurs. A student of psychology is familiar with this reality about the type of psychological transformation which takes place within man with the emergence of desires. And then whatever kind of desire it is, the psychological change is of the same kind. With this psychological transformation the outlook of man changes, and it is obvious that with a change in outlook, a change occurs in the outer world. As I have stated in the foreword. In this book I do not wish to discuss the issue of Taqdeer and its intricacies from the philosophical viewpoint. Because by doing this the matter will not remain generally comprehensible. And our journey will also become very protracted, otherwise what subjective idealism states is that there is no existence even of an external universe, its environment and circumstances are reflections of our hearts. Nonetheless, it is a fact that with the intensity of desire of man, such a psychological change takes place within him that it alters his outlook, and the extent to which his desire becomes focused, his energies keep multiplying proportionately. The reason that one leap of love accomplishes everything is that this occurs due to the energy created by the intense desire in this regard. When we look in somewhat greater depth at the Arabs of the era of ignorance, then we are amazed that despite being so devoid of civilization and culture, and so unacquainted with philosophy and reasoning, how elevated was their vision and how profound was their intellect. And they only had one way to demonstrate this, that is their language, listen Arabi Mubin. When those Bedouins used to milk their animals, they used to leave some milk behind in the mammary glands. This milk used to become the catalyst for bringing down that milk which the animal had kept back higher up. The milk left behind like this was called al-dayatu by them. From this the meaning of dua can be comprehended, that is that state which becomes the cause for the stirring of human emotions, and for generating action in him, from which his hidden potentials, concealed milk, manifest and emerge. This occurs due to the intensity of desire, for which another name is dua. 17.13 Keep your desires congruent with Mashiach. In relation to desire, two aspects are fundamental. One is what kind of desire is it? Different kinds of desires keep emerging in the heart of man, but the criterion for a correct desire which the Quran has kept before a moment is that you should only desire that which Allah desires. 81. 29. Keep your desires in accordance with the Mashiach of Allah. Whatever matter is considered to be wrong by Allah, you should also consider it to be wrong. Whatever He considers to be good, you should also consider it to be good. You should strive to become that which Allah wishes you to become. Iqbal has stated about the Quran that this will make you all that which Allah wishes you to become. Consider it in very clear words in this way, that the aim of all the endeavors and striving of human life is that the development of his self takes place. And as a criterion to verify to what extent myself has become developed, it should be seen to what degree the divine attributes are reflected by it. One set of attributes of Allah are those which are specific to His being, for example, He is the first and the last. The other attributes are those which man can create within himself, within human limits. For example, Rahim, Kareem, Rauf, Razak, etc. The degree to which the conduct of an individual reflects the divine attributes i.e. the degree to which his character and deeds display those attributes which are analogous to the divine attributes, it can be deemed that his self is developing to the same extent. Hence, the primary goal for the human character and conduct is that only those desires should emerge in his heart which are in complete harmony with the Mashiach of Allah. This is created by keeping the Quranic values in front. To that end, the key issue is a change in the desires of man. Iqbal has described this reality in a very captivating style when he states that your dua is that your desire becomes fulfilled, my dua is that your desire becomes transformed. This change in human desires is not without the guidance of Wahi. Without the guidance of Wahi, the state of man is such that instead that he prays for those things which are better for him, he keeps praying for those things which are harmful for him. The reality is that man happens to be very hasty. 17. 11. We witness the hastiness of man at every step in life, not only of others but also our own impulsive behavior, and then also witness the subsequent embarrassment and regret. Therefore, the very first essential stage is that we check whether the desire which is arising in our heart is in line with the permanent values defined by Allah or not. If it is not, then by changing it we should bring it into line with the permanent value. 17.14 What is meant by the dhikr of Allah? The next step is that this desire, this aim, this criterion, should be kept in front all the time. The conduct which the Quran has described of the mu'mineen is a reflection of this very reality. It states that these are the people who, standing, sitting, and lying down, keep the divine laws of Allah in front of their eyes. 3. 191. As a result, maturity is developed in their desire and its purity is also not tainted. In Surah Hamim the Quran has described this reality in greater detail, when it states that those people who declare with the total conviction and contentment of their heart that our Rabb is Allah, and then remain resolutely steadfast on this proclamation, not allowing even the slightest tremor in this, the Malaika descend upon them, telling them, do not be fearful, do not grieve, and receive the glad tidings of this life of Jannat which has been promised to you. We are your companions and helpers in the life of this world, and also in the life of the future. 41. 30-31. After this it is stated that whatever you wish in it, Jannat, will take place. Whatever you ask, you will receive. In this, every desire of yours will be fulfilled, every dua will be granted. 41. 31. Whatever you wish will be available, in this is a very great promise. It is obvious that according to these explanations which have already been noted, a mu'min will only wish for that which will be in accordance with the permanent values. Allah's Mashiach. Hence, he will never even desire anything which is wrong, and he will only ask for that which Allah has made a promise to give the mu'minin, that is all kinds of bounties, successes, rizq-i-kareem, control and supremacy, power and authority, that is all the blessings of a Quranic society. The state of affairs in it will not be that I accorded you with reverence, despite your disregard. That which was not desired, happened. And that which was desired, never happened. The only complaint I have with Providence is that I received that which I did not desire, and that which I desired, I never received. All this happens in a society based on Jahannam. This does not happen in a society based on Jannat, in which whatever a mu'min desires, that happens. Whatever he asks for, he receives it. This is because every demand and desire of his is in line with the mashiat of Allah. Have you noticed what kinds of supplications the mu'minin make, and how these are fulfilled? These supplications are of that Jamaat which rises up in the world for the shaping and strengthening of the system of Allah, and continues to traverse the journey of life in the light of the Wahi of Allah. In their breasts is a multitude of virtuous desires. In their hearts a yearning for the achievement of their goal, a clear aim before their eyes, strength in their arms, and resoluteness in their steps. They are those people whose selves are a reflection of the divine attributes within human limits. The deepest desire of a mu'min is that his thoughts, goals, aims, wishes, points of view, and ultimate vision should all become compatible with the mashiat of Allah. I had presented this very reality in the following words in my book, The Human Self and Iblis. What is dua? The beautiful desire to become mutually harmonious with the ultimate melody of the musical voice of nature. The agitated desire to become one color with the heart-enchanting beauties being manifested of the unveiling reality. The fervent, intense desire in the breast of a partridge to clasp the moon within its breast like the Milky Way. The enthusiasm and excitement in the heart of a moth to absorb the style and manner of the euphoric and dancing flame of the burning torch that is the fierce desire of the human self to continue to make its finite expanse ever wider, and for the satisfaction of this desire, the beautiful demand of the dewdrop for the wings of an eagle from the rays of the sun. If we observe closely, then we will see that iman, dua, and deed, are all rays of one flame, and petals of one flower. Iman is the name of the acknowledgement of this truth, that the secret of the elevation of human character is concealed in mutual harmony with the center of goodness and virtue of the worldly system. Dua is the intense longing for this harmony and one color, and action is the live manifestation of this craving and the resolute pursuit for its achievement. These are those supplications of the mu'minin which become granted. It is through their very hands that the establishment of the divine system comes to pass, that system in which no one has to wake up during the nights to beseech for their individual needs and requirements. This system prevents their supplications from reaching Allah. It ensures such an arrangement so that the dua, plea, of every needy one is fulfilled before it strikes against the throne of Allah. As far as the support of the Malaika is concerned, for this the Quran has clarified that such a psychological change occurs within man from this, due to which he achieves contentment of the heart. 8. 10. And the consequence of this contentment of the heart is that resoluteness and steadfastness is created in his steps. 8. 11. This is what happens as a result of dua, that is a psychological change occurs within man himself due to this. How enviable is that manner in which Iqbal has expounded such a lofty and profound reality in 2 verses, from which a more comprehensive and alluring style cannot be envisioned. Listen, and revel in it too. He says that, with your dua, destiny, kadha, cannot be changed, but it is possible from this that you may change. And we consider that this is the final word in this regard. The word kadha here means the law of Allah. 17.15 Supplicating for each other as far as the issue of making a dua for each other is concerned. This is in reality the expression of our good intentions in their favor, through which they receive solace. In the sphere of human affairs, this is called moral support. Due to this, a kind of psychological force becomes awakened in this individual himself, the effects of which are extremely pleasant. The invalid whose face lights up on seeing the one whom he loves more than life itself. In the words of the poet Caleb, one can imagine the effect that uttering a few phrases of consolation, or a few words of appreciation, creates in his heart. This is the same situation for the expression of a few good words for the dead. Though it makes no difference to the deceased, it lessens the grief and sadness of those he leaves behind. This is the benefit of these kinds of societal interactions. Due to this, a human being does not feel isolated within society, his morale remains high during even the most trying of circumstances. This is why Rasulullah was informed that when these people bring their donations to you, after accepting them, say appreciative words to them, appreciate this deed of theirs, say a dua for them. This is because your dua is a cause for great satisfaction for them. 9. 103. 17.16 The individual supplications of the Anbiya. In the Quran these is also mention of some individual supplications of the Anbiya. For example, the messenger Ayub called on Allah during his state of extreme distress, and Allah rectified his suffering. 21. 83-84. The messenger Yunus called upon Allah in a state of torment due to his sorrow and pain, and he achieved freedom from his trouble. 21. 87-88. Firstly, the Quran has not provided details about what kinds of measures were created to remove their troubles and distresses, and secondly, and this is a fundamental point, Nubuwwat is such a status whose form and constitution it is not possible for a non-Nabi to comprehend. We simply cannot know what kind of mutual relationship there was between Allah and a Nabi. How Allah communicated with the Nabi, how the Nabi talked to Allah. Hence, it is futile to discuss and argue about that reality which we simply cannot comprehend. In any case, after the ending of Nubuwwat, this question cannot even arise about what is the nature of the mutual relationship between Allah and a Nabi. After the ending of Nubuwwat, the connection between Allah and human beings is established according to this wahi of Allah which is preserved within the Quran. Other than this, there is neither the possibility nor any means of creating a direct connection with Allah. The one who makes a claim to this is essentially proclaiming Nubuwwat, no matter what kinds of words or terminology he employs for this. Since a proclamation of Nubuwwat is now batil, hence claiming a direct connection with Allah is also wrong. Concepts such as Kashf, Alham, etc. are all non-Quranic and borrowed from others. These words have not even appeared in the Quran. The personal dua of Rasulullah which has appeared in the Quran is the most sublime specimen of a beautiful desire for every human being until the Day of Judgment. He was told that, say, O my Rabb, bestow on me abundant knowledge. 20. 114. If only the followers of Rasulullah had made their hearts the abode of this one desire, what would their stature have been today? 17.17 Dua is remad and despair from remad is kafir. It is stated that by not having belief in dua and its acceptance, man becomes hopeless of the remad of Allah, and being hopeless of the remad of Allah is kafir. Those who say this do not know what is meant by remad according to the Quran, and who it is who becomes hopeless of it. In order to understand its correct meaning, bring to mind once again the meaning of tawbah which we have previously described. In the fiery shariat of the Jews, there was no room for tawbah. If anyone committed some error, he had to definitely undergo its punishment, there was no possibility of rectifying it. This was the same situation among the Hindus according to the doctrine of Karam Yug. The individual who had committed evil deeds in his previous life had to suffer the punishment for these in the present life. There was no way to remain protected from this in the present life. If he did good deeds, then their fruit would be received in the next life. The belief of Christians is that every human child arrives in the world with the burden of the sin of the first father and mother, Adam and Eve, on his back, and whatever he may do, he cannot obtain deliverance from this stain. When God saw that in this way all human beings will end up in hell, then he felt compassion for his creation. Therefore he sent his only Son to the world, who by giving his life on the cross, paid for the atonement of the sins of mankind. After this the situation became such that those people who accept belief in the atonement of Jesus, they will achieve salvation. This is the reason that their belief is that salvation does not occur through deeds, but occurs through faith. When it is said by them that God is mercy, this is what is meant. 17.18 The correct meaning of Remat. The world was becoming an abode for these contradictions and paradoxes, that is where there was Adl. There was no Ram, and where there was Ram, there was no concept of Adl. Then the Quran arrived, and declared on arrival that both these beliefs are wrong. Both Adl and Ram are present in the law of requital of Allah. But the concept of Ram in it is not that which exists among Christians. Its concept of Ram can be understood through this example, that an individual puts his hand into fire and it becomes burnt, and due to this he suffers an agonizing punishment. Pain. This is Adl, but that Allah, who has placed this property in fire that it can burn a hand, has also created such things through which the one who is burnt can be treated. The creation of such things is called the Remat of Allah. But only he can obtain benefit from these things, who after being burnt by fire, turns towards these things. In Quranic terminology this is termed as tawbah, that is, the effort and endeavor to rectify the damage which has been caused from taking a wrong step. The one who despairs of the Remat of Allah is the one who does not make efforts and endeavors to rectify the ill effects, who after his error does not try to remedy it. We have already stated that, according to the allegorical account of Adam, an error was made by Adam and also by Iblis. When Adam realized this, he was very remorseful for his action and he readied himself for the rectification of the ill effect. He took advantage of the Remat of Allah. Iblis refused to accept his crime and remained stubborn in his transgression. He became deprived of the Remat of Allah. This is the Quranic meaning of Remat, that is, the provision for rectification in the law of requital. See with what clarity the Quran explains this meaning. It is stated in Surah Al-Zumar, O Rasool, say to those of my servants who have committed a wrong against themselves, do not be hopeless of the Remat of Allah. Allah has created the means of protection from the harm resulting from every error. He is the bestower of the means of protection and extends Remat in this way. The procedure for this is that, if you have stepped in the wrong direction, then return from there and come to the path proposed by Allah, that is, bow down before His commands and laws, before that the time arrives for the tangible results of your errors. In that event, no one will be able to save you from harm. 39. 53-54. At another place this principle has been clarified in these words. O Rasool, when those people who have iman in the truth of our laws come to you, say to them that your Rabb has made Remat mandatory on himself. 6. 54. What is that Remat? That Remat is that if someone among you unwittingly makes a mistake, and after that he is repentant on this and reforms himself, then he will find Allah to be Ghafur and Rahim. 6. 54. This is the aim of the Remat of Allah. But this does not mean that having carried out Tawbah once, one can keep doing whatever one wishes, and there will be no accountability. The Quran states that, in this way Allah will bless you with His Remat. But if you return to your wrong way, then our punishment will also return and come in your direction. 17. 8. It is obvious that only he who has conviction in the law of requital of Allah will repent and reform. Tawbah. After his mistake. The one who does not even have any conviction in this, that a wrong path is destructive, what reformation of himself can he carry out? These are the people about whom it is declared that they are hopeless of the Remat of Allah. It is stated in Surah Al-Ankabut. Those people who reject the laws of Allah and the law of requital, they remain hopeless of the Remat of Allah. 29. 23. At another place it is stated, The people who are hopeless of the Rahmat of Allah are the ones whose state is such that if they are treading on the wrong path, even if they are warned 1,000 times, they will continue on that same path, they will never come to the right path. 15. 56. Contrary to this, see also who are the candidates for the Rahmat of Allah. Surely, those people who accepted Iman, and they migrated and did jihad in the path of Allah, are the people who can be hopeful of the Rahmat of Allah. It is for them that Allah's attributes of Ghafur and Rahim will become manifested. 2. 218. These are the people who become deserving of divine Rahmat. Not those who keep sitting with their hands in their laps doing nothing waiting for tomorrow to come, or at the very most, keep reciting the tasbih of Astaghfirullah. Note what the Quran states in this regard. Even among the Jamaat-e-Mu'minin, those people who are sluggish, excepting those who are disabled, and those people who do jihad with their life and possessions, can never be equal. Allah has given superiority in rank to those who do jihad with their life and possessions over those people who remain sitting due to idleness. It is true that all will benefit from the bounties of this system, but compared to those who lag behind, the ranks of the Mujahideen are surely very lofty, higher ranks, and protection, Maghfirat, and nourishment, Rahmat. Surely, Allah is Ghafur and Rahim. 4. 95 to 96. And finally, bring those verses of Surah Al-Araf before you in which it is stated that Moses supplicated to Allah that he should bless Bani Israel with his Rahmat. In reply to this, it was stated that there is no doubt that our Rahmat encompasses the whole universe, but among human beings it can only fall into the share of those who adopt taqwa, follow the laws of Allah, execute zakat, that is provide the means of nourishment to humanity, and have iman in the truth of our laws, and in the subsequent era obey that unlettered Nabi whose eminent mention will be found in the Torah and Injil. Bible. He will give the command for maruf, righteousness, and will forbid from munkar, evil. He will declare that which is pure and good as being halal, and will declare that which is impure and harmful as haram, and will remove all kinds of non-Allah yokes of enslavement from their necks in which they are shackled, and will remove and throw down those heavy burdens from their heads under the weight of which they are being buried. This Rahmat of Allah which is encompassing the whole expanse of the universe like blessed shade will only be available in this way, there is no other way to benefit from it than this. 7. 156 to 157. These are the very people whose supplications are accepted, and these are the people upon whom the shade of the blessed clouds of the Rahmat of Allah is cast. Dua is the name given to calling upon the law of Allah at the crossroads of life. The response to which can be found from the court of the divine book by every one of those individuals who makes an effort to understand it through knowledge and vision. And by purifying the intellect and vision, embeds it in the depths of his heart. As a result of this, that transformation occurs in his inner world on which revolutions in the external world depend. Due to this change, the taqdeer of man changes. Iqbal states, if your self changes, then the external world changes accordingly. This is the immutable law of Allah and his Rahmat. This is why he has called his book a Rahmat, and also called the one who presented it a Rahmat.